Thank you very much. Starting off our lineup, we have Sergeant Hightower and Deputy Cassie from the PBSO. Take it away, Jess.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Hope everyone Christmas, New Year, and everything was good. So let's start fresh this year. Okay, if crime-wise, basically one stolen vehicle, which was more domestic related, so you can scratch that. Burglary to vehicles, we actually had 2, and residence 4. This one, when I was reading it for you guys, just because I've heard of it also, where you get like 2 people knocking at the door and they'll distract the residents, and then one will just run inside. So you guys just be careful with stuff like that, because basically how this one happened was someone knocked at the door and they were say giving like quotes for landscaping. And so they took them to the back, and then the other person went. So just be careful.
Is that daytime or what was the afternoon?
Daytime.
Yeah, daytime it was a gray and colored 4-door, like a Nissan or a little thing we kind of ID'd that was involved in all those. So same thing we've talked about for years. I've been with you guys for 5 years now, and you know, we go over the things. You know who lives here and who doesn't live here. Somebody's driving out, Joe Schmo coming, and you know he's not lawn maintenance material. You know, there's a certain style, but you know this guy's a worker. That'd be somebody tough. You come out and dressed in slacks and everything, he's talking about trimming trees. That's not the guy to be, you know, something's up. Call it, like I say, if it's not, we 680, we've given out the number, they're on our site, 680-3000. You get, you know, you're out here, you have the 2 patrolmen that patrol from here all the way back to the coast going, but at least if you get that call, where are they? They're here, looking for it. So if they don't live here, call. Who cares? We stop them, hello, how you doing? If they're good people, hey, this is how you get out of here and head back to Indian Town. If they're bad people, hey, we got another place for you to go.
Yeah, we've got an awful lot of reports of fraud/embezzlement. Do you have any idea what that is? What's happening to these people? It's happening almost every
Is that
day.
here or Palm Beach Region 6?
Here.
Here.
Both.
Okay, this is what I actually got this on my phone, and I know a lot of people do, where I, for some reason, owe IRS all this money,
Yeah.
and they're gonna come and arrest me. Now, strangely enough, a lot of people fall for stuff like that, and I think that's what it is, because a lot of these robocalls going out now, and once you start answering and they start asking questions, I mean, if you call 100 people and 10 people bite, for them it's a lot of money.
Do
So
people report that to PBSO?
yeah, a lot of people call it in.
Aha.
Yeah, we have our own unit that investigates that, but just, come on, folks. We're all grown folks here. Let's use some sense. If somebody's calling the IRS and telling you that you gotta pay them with Target gift cards, something's wrong. I mean, that's what they're getting the folks. And folks are going to Walmart and they're going to Target and they're buying the gift cards because they think they're in trouble. Do not, when they ask you, you don't give them your social security number, you don't give them your driver's license, you don't give them nothing. If you already know, and you're the IRS, believe me, if the IRS wants you, what are they gonna do? They're gonna come get you. They're gonna be knocking on the door. So, okay, sir, this is where I'm at, you already know everything, come get me. They called me and said, you're getting arrested. I said, I'll meet you at the jail.
The IRS does not call.
I understand, I do understand.
They don't, they send letters, but they will never call.
You don't
right
know
off
of
the
any
bat-
instances where people are going from property to property with any kind of fraudulent scheme?
I actually saw that on the news this week, Hunter's Run down in between Boynton and Delray. I don't know how it's a gated community. I've been in that community before, and they were actually going in and saying, hey, I'm from Chase or whatever. We're here to collect, the cards are no good. And people actually give these people their credit cards, so.
It's mostly the elderly.
It's
I mean,
well,
we're all,
that helps.
you know, I just
That
said
helps.
51, we're all elderly, but, you know, that's what they're preying on. They're preying on real elderly that think, hey, I'm in trouble, and they're getting it. So,
Not right now.
you know, they're not gonna go knock on the door of a 20-year-old guy and say, hey, I need this money from you. Obviously, it ain't happening. So let's just, whoever they are, even if they're from Chase and they're showing their stuff, call the police. Hey, hang on, I'll talk to you in a minute. The sheriff's office is coming just to verify who you are. What do you think they're gonna do?
Run.
They're gonna car and leave. They'll leave. Yes, ma'am.
We have a new neighbor
Congratulations.
who is a registered predator,
Right.
and none of the people on the street with children were notified. And we are curious if we can expect better police response times if we have to call, or if we will be notified if there's a change of status?
Right, you will, I mean, there's two folds. On the PBSO app site, it tells where they live, just like you're saying.
Yeah.
And then you have to, that classification, I'm not voting anything. There's only a few things that really hit my nerve, and it deals with kids and drugs and this.
That's
that,
what
and the
it
other.
is.
It's on, it's
But
child under 15.
We don't know, right, okay, but we don't know at the time, was he 16 and acting without pulling it up? Now, I mean, you may already know, but he'll still, a person, she will still be classified under that. So it may have been a mutual relationship.
There's a lot more to it than
Okay,
that.
yeah, so,
I mean, the person is on an ankle monitor.
Okay,
We have more than 20 kids on the street, so obviously it's a concern. For burglary of occupied dwellings, for issues with law enforcement, whatever. Will we be notified if his ankle monitor is taken off of him? When he gets
I
off
think
that
only the
probation?
victim is, but you will see it on that PBSO app. They update that. And you can
Even for
always,
ankle monitors?
even for everything ongoing, you can go to the app and you can call our monitor people. You know who he is, Johnny Jones, but those are the kind of information that need to be emailed over to Cassie and Russell and say, hey, here's what we got, can you look into it?
Okay, we have no idea. That's
Right,
okay.
okay, so
That's
you
why
have two deputies that are permanently assigned here to help you all the time, so if you have this question, you send over, they get with our analyst, Pat, and say, hey, run this guy for me, and she
Okay.
tells everything from his shoe size to, what he eats for breakfast, she knows.
Okay,
Okay.
can I
So
get
then that would be put out.
Can I get that email?
CASSIEB,
See,
SSIE, Echo, B is in Bravo, at bbso.org.
BBSO.org?
Oh, ORG?
Or, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Traffic enforcement.
Right,
I'm a resident since 1976 out here in the farm.
yes, sir.
I've been here a few years,
Right.
seen a lot of growth, and we're between Amy and Alexander.
Right,
And of course, we have speed bumps around the school zone on Alexander. However, the traffic, we go to walk in the morning around 8 o'clock in the morning, 50, 60 miles an hour every day. And, I mean, it's really intolerable, and it hasn't gotten any better with growth.
right.
Is there any plans to do anything regarding, and it's sure not just Alexander.
Right,
I mean, we're
we have our
talking-
motor units that we send out, but where are we at right in the middle of, right now that happens and everything changes in a minute with the president? So all the motor units are sent to wherever he's doing. First they thought he was coming to Chris, everything was going. We have Sergeant Mulbridge out there, that's the other thing you can send to Cassie, and it's been done a few times by the residents, and we send it to the motor unit, and the motor unit comes out and they set up, tickets for this, ticket for that, and that's what they live for, I mean, God bless them. But they write all those tickets. But as you're going, but just gotta remember that a certain time of year, especially during Christmas, during the other, when it's picking up and the kids are out, those guys are assigned to the drone detail. So as long as he is our president and we're looking at another 4 or however it goes, that'll go. So now when it slows down, when he's not coming, they'll be out there doing their operations.
They were out today, I know, up by Indian Town, and the problem is too, is the minute they go out, somebody posts there's a traffic.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, it's kind of.
We don't help ourselves by everybody posting that.
Right.
Which we try to delete or.
But it is on the
Right.
district commander's mind, we do push it through, we do, when I get a call or Cassie them get an email, we send it to Sergeant Mulbridge, he sends his couple guys out here, 2 or 3, and got a pack, when the motor unit was decentralized, now District 3's got 10, they got 10, they're all not one thing, so when they pull them all out of the district and going, and then you got your 2 patrolmen, he's giving 1 ticket at the back of the farms, there's 40 speeding in the front of the farms, and he's by himself. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have a resource issue out here, it's a lot of area to
Right.
cover.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is 5 patrolmen from 45th Street north, from 45th Street north to here, there's 5 patrolmen, 5. No, but that's from the beach to you guys. So-
Which is why we also say, whenever anything happens, call in.
Oh, yeah.
So they can log it, because the only way you're gonna get an increased force is by having the need for it.
How about the
Statistics
They
to
only
back
look
it
at the
up.
data.
How about the neighborhood patrol? Do they have anybody?
No.
No, there's no enforcement
No.
powers there.
Right, they're not observing, they're putting out,
It's just
they're putting out the
eyes.
speed, every time you guys request a trailer, they bring the trailer out for us. Remember, they do the speed trailer, they announced the trailer, then when they brought it out for me and said, penguins walk across the road, whatever it's at that time. So, I gotta monitor them to get it out. I mean, they mean well, but, they're all volunteers doing a great job.
Understood.
So they'll bring the stuff out, but the motors, just like I say, it's just a hit or miss when the president's here or any dignitary, because, they're the ones that do the traffic and do all that stuff. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for our distinguished
yeah.
officer?
The only thing I wanna go over is we've been going over for 5 years. These ATVs,
Yeah.
okay? Okay. I'll try some better.
Okay. All right, guys, have a good night.
Some big event is planned Sunday, or it's going on the Facebook page, on the rant, and going. So now they're drawing attention, and they're gonna be out here enforcing this, Sunday, they'll be out here and enforcing the two people that were complaining, that seemed like 7 on the rant page, taking pictures of themselves getting pulled over. I don't know if anybody has noticed them, but if you look at the one of them, here's a father with a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old sitting in his lap on the golf cart. Now, come on, use some sense. We've explained how, we've sent the information out. Register the thing.
Yep.
I lived in Loxahatchee my whole life. I grew up there, my dad's there from the 60s, so I've seen it. We had property out here. Yeah, I couldn't ride mine. So what did I do? I had to buy some other place to take it and ride it. Hey, that's just the cost of doing business. Or register it, get a tag for it, go down and pay the money, and drive it where in the world you want to drive it to. Except on the sidewalk, down canal banks, I was there last week, somebody's dumping plumbing stuff, rolls into the canal out here, for what reason? So let's just do it the right way, and there should be no problem. A swamp buggy can't be registered. Hey, we can't be driving that down the roadway. That's for a swamp. Buy a place with a swamp and take it there. But just think about it, the sheriff is not pushing it that way, and they talk about Wellington. You go out to Wellington during the horse season when they're riding, what are they all? They're all registered, they all have a tag, they all have seat belts, they all have a horn. That's all we need to do out here. And you can ride it up and down as long as you're obeying the laws. But don't complain about the sheriff stopping you and Deputy Kane stopping and towing coolers when you got 2 toddlers unbuckled on the thing going down the highway. This always happens when a kid gets hurt, whether it's Loxahatchee, Palm Beach, Country States, and here. Those kids are hurt because we as parents let them out there on them. Okay, so let's stop that. So spread the word through the thing. We will be out here Sunday. If you're out riding them around and you want to try to buck the sheriff's office and show us, hey, we're going to ride them anyway, you're going to lose them. So unless you got a whole bunch of money after Christmas, because we're going to take them all. You can only run so far. Okay? We're not going to pursue, we're going to chase you. We're going to know where you live and we're going to come get it. So just put the word out. Don't try to buck the system. Do it the right way, and we'll all have fun. Hurrah. Okay? There.
Sunday, I saw that event that's going to supposedly be taking place, but we're also doing Talking Trash on Sunday. We have a gator, and it has that little thing on the back. Is that allowed to be on the streets? Because I use that when we go around talking trash, and
Right.
given it's Sunday,
Yeah. I mean,
and this event's gonna go on, I don't wanna.
here's the thing. I think, we can say the cops are bad, we can say this, that, and the other, and now we call everything your brother. But now, if you're pulling up and you're cleaning up trash, and cleaning up your neighborhood, now that guy's gotta be hardcore to be giving you a ticket on that. Now, can I say he's not gonna? I can't promise that. Am I gonna do it? Probably not.
But does that make it street legal if it has?
No.
not at all.
Horn, it has a rear view mirror, just like a
And
car.
the gator can't be street legal anyway.
Okay.
Right. There are golf carts that can be converted to what is called an LSV, a low-speed vehicle, and there's a whole checklist, and you have to be registered and you have to be insured, just like an automobile.
Okay, so basically,
Isn't it
it's not
anything-
legal to be on the street and.
I think some of the new UTVs that you can buy, they're already coming where you can.
Yeah, some of them have a package.
And new one, but we all, just like me, we all have, 25 years old and barely run, and that's what we got.
Well, isn't in Florida, anything over that's a certain CC needs to be registered? And then anything over 50, right?
Well, even if you get on an electric moped.
Right, anything over 50 CC, yeah.
You get the same for that, for,
That's the road registered.
and you gotta remember, unregistered vehicle is criminal. So that means go to jail. So, like I say, that's another, I guess that's the attitude of the person and the police officer as you're going to jail with that. So. But just be careful. I think it's a safety reason more than anything else. And these I got an email from Steve, driving down these the canal access, they're scaring the livestock. They got goats jumping out because they're running them 150 miles an hour down there. Spend $300, go to Holy Paul or River Ranch, buy yourself, ride it till the tires fall off. Nobody cares here. People live here, and they don't want that happening, especially at that crazy speed. All right?
Sergeant, while you're here, I just wanted to ask you, I had seen this as a post, and I don't know anything more about it. It just says, just wondering if somebody heard gunshots near Whippoorwill Trail Saturday night or early Sunday between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., or if somebody happened to see anything suspicious. My dog was shot. Bullet went in one side and out the other. She was found next to my house.
She didn't call it in.
I don't know. This
shot
just got
fired.
posted 6 hours ago, so.
I think she said she's gonna call today.
I think she
and
said,
make a report.
she
Yeah.
called ACC, I believe, and ACC had said to call, but so I don't know where it is in the system, but rather than wait a month,
Yeah, you gotta call this stuff in. The only shots fired came out in Westgate Park. They're in Westgate, which is away from you guys, but at a park at 9 o'clock, they're shooting all over the place. So that's only, when I got back Saturday, all the reports I read was no shooting. There's no shooting out here. ACC does handle it if somebody shoots a dog, but obviously we're gonna get involved, because where were they shooting them from? Now, if you shot it in your yard, that's ACC, has nothing to do with this. But if you're 4 roads over and you're shooting a dog, then it becomes our problem. So, but if you don't report,
if it's a bullet that left the property line.
right, or that, or if you're shooting on the roadway, or you're not, in fear. But see, those things need to be reported, because if they don't put out there, we looked at the allocation of the 5 patrolmen out here during the day. Luckily, we have low stats of crime-wise out here, so that's why they justify the people. But if you start adding up violent shootings and shooting this and shooting that, okay, hey, we need a couple more people out there. That's where the resources need to be put. So please call in. You got a police car there. We had a resident, very proud of her. She called me and said, hey, I got this, and it didn't sound right. So I said, hey, you need to call that in. I'm way away from here. She called it in. It saved the young lady's life. She's been laying there for 3 days. Oh. And could have died. So if it wasn't for her calling, the lady could be dead. So now we're working the case going, but it's just a phone call. If it's not an emergency and you need me to call me and I'll work on it, if it's happening right then, who do we call? 911. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Alright, so, but and after you call 911 and settle down, call me and I'll follow up and I'll get the information that you need. That's why my guys email, you can call them. And they have my cell phone number. If for some reason, which I doubt they will do, they don't follow up with you, then I'll deal with it. Alrighty, folks? Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Those are hopefully still happening. The engineer will have a presentation at next week's meeting concerning assessments on water control by acreage and why it's by acreage. We've had a couple of residents that have asked, because when you go through your Sir Wicked assessments, there are certain things that are billed per parcel and there are certain things that are billed per acre. Now, if you're like most people out here and you live on 1.25 acres, it doesn't make much of a difference. But if you have 10, 20, or 40 acres, and you're getting billed per acre on something, it does make a difference. So she's going to be presenting on that. There is a discussion that will take place that if somebody has a pond and doesn't want to be assessed for water control on the pond, they could deed that pond over to the district. So take that as it will. I'm sure that'll be a very interesting discussion. And an update on the culvert program. Due to metal price increases, landowners wanting a culvert longer than 20 feet will have to pay for the extra length, and that won't be a shared cost with the district. And that's all he had for me. I won't be taking any questions on Sir Wicked. Susan Kennedy apologizes she cannot be here, but she encourages you to listen to her on the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Jupiter Farms Residence now has a podcast, and Susan Kennedy was our first guest. And it's interesting. Some of getting information out there, and we actually talked about this on the podcast. How did they do what they did in order to get the protections all around Jupiter Farms back in the 1980s, before they had Facebook, before they had really email? How difficult it was, and now it seems that we're at the point where there's so many different ways that people get. Some people know about this only because of the Jupiter Farmer. Not that it's out yet this month, probably. But you know about your community activities through the newspaper that you get in your mailbox. Some of you, it's because you're on an email letter that we send out, a newsletter. Some of you, it's because you're on Facebook. Some of it's because you are you're talking to some. Yeah, you go to Publix and you see a calendar. So we're trying to reach as many people as possible, however they get information. And luckily, we have a gentleman that moved to our neighborhood named David Guggenheim, who is a wonderful podcast engineer and came up with the idea. And we're going to float it for a couple of months and see how it does. We're having some fun doing it. Our first episode hit last week, and there's already actually a Palm Beach Post article about it that hit today. So. Subscribe to it. If you got to commute, by the time you reach 95, it'll be over. But but give us a try. So Susan can't be with us today.
What's it called?
It's called the Jupiter Farms Residents Podcast because we went for originality.
And if you're on the Facebook group and you see the post, which we have, Maddie, I think will be pinning it to the top probably tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You can just click on that and then it'll subscribe you if you have a phone with podcasts on it or whatever. It's
free.
To get at it. It's free.
You guys like that? It's free. So we'll just go right into other Jupiter Farms business. This Sunday, as you heard, is Talking Trash. That they meet at 8 a.m. here at the park. It's a wonderful thing that they're doing, and bravo. We have Sir Wicket. If you're interested in attending the Sir Wicket meeting next Thursday at Jupiter High School. We have this Jupiter Farms movie night on the 19th at, I can see that.
It's the Jupiter Farms Podcast.
It's a Jupiter Farms Podcast, not a webcast. Look, another subscriber, David. So the 19th is Smoking the Bandit at the Farmhouse Cafe. Will they be open? Won't they be open? The food truck will always be open, and we should have, hot dogs and popcorn.
It's looking amazing inside. I got a little sneak peek of the bathrooms the other day, which is
Wow.
incredible.
Yeah,
But
they look
they
good.
really, unfortunately, they had to put a lot of money hidden into the structure of the building that had been neglected for a long time. So they're taking a little bit longer to open.
But they want to do it right.
It's looking fantastic, and they
Who's
have,
opening there?
Taylor Farmhouse Cafe, it's going to be called.
They used to own or still own Burrito Brothers Cobblestone Cafe. Lovely family, and they're just as frustrated about not being open.
As we are not having open, but the food truck's doing well. And then, of course, if you're interested, on February 9th, we have the second annual JFR Shootout at the OK Corral. Come and meet your neighbors and shoot out. That's all I know. It's a sporting. That'll get them. We're gonna sell out now. No, it's a sporting clay shoot. It was an incredibly successful event last year. The first year we did it when we didn't know what we were doing. So we still don't know what we're doing, and we're hoping that it's still going to be a great event. So you can register for that by going to jupiterfarmsresidents.com and hit the link. So without any further, do we have any other questions regarding JFR or Jupiter Farms Residents or anything out here? Yes?
It's not a question, I just wanted to let everyone know what's happening at Riverbend Park.
Yes.
The Loxahatchee Battlefield preservationists are putting on remembrance, but they're also doing a reenactment.
Right.
And this is so it's two events. One is on the 20th, that's a spiritual remembrance for the, the souls from the Second Seminole War.
Gotcha.
And it's the 181st anniversary. So anyway, and then on the 26th, which is the Saturday, then they're having the big reenactment.
And keep in mind, if you are new out this year, they practice the cannon shots Friday.
Yes.
So don't call 911.
You live on the east side, it's just cannons, get over it, everyone.
Your cannons from your Saturday, it's the park.
But it's a lot of fun, fresh air, free, it's no charge.
We're selling a lot of free tonight. So between the podcast and the battlefield reenactment, you guys can get all of your free at one time. Any other questions for JFR or anything around the area that we might be able to help anybody with? Going once, going twice, three times. Good. Without any further ado, I would like to bring up Mabry Conklin, who is going to talk to, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's the results from the project that, yes. I don't know how to title this.
My research project, yeah. Here, we put on these.
I don't know, who cares? Try. Anybody got a bigger easel?
That's a big report.
Great. All right. So I'm Avery Conklin. I'm a senior at Oxbridge Academy, and I've been working on my research project involving the water quality of our wells here in Jupiter Farms. And I came here in October, I believe, and I got samples. I don't know if any of you guys were here for that. So I took this up to a conference in Baltimore. It was a collegiate conference. So I'm going to tell you guys, for any of you, if I took your water, the results that I found. And I got, there's a couple graphs, you guys probably can't see it, but essentially I use ibuprofen as a human marker for feces, but I was testing for nitrates as a whole. So nitrates is a fecal marker and ibuprofen is the human fecal marker. So in all of my samples that I took down here, they all had nitrates present, but nitrate is also, it's present naturally in groundwater, but there were only 13 of my 45 samples with the trace amount of nitrates, and the rest were above what it should be. And then I believe it was six of my samples tested positive for ibuprofen. So 6 of my samples had the potential of human feces in the water. And when I was on the phone talking to you, this isn't advocating for city water. It's advocating for, yeah, don't worry. It's advocating just for filtration, making sure that you guys know your filters are up to date and you are checking to make sure that your filters are filtering out what they should be. So, yeah, and your septic systems are updated. And especially, I want to put impact on the filters as well, just because I tested during events of flooding. So even if your septic system is up to date and your well water is up to date, your neighbors might not be. And in events of flooding, it can very easily move into your yard and it's not even your fault. But if you're filtering for the right substances and if you're testing your water, you should be fine. But I know a lot of us, we don't necessarily drink from our water, but we do use it to brush our teeth. We do wash our vegetables with it. We wash our dishes with it. Because I know I personally don't drink from my sink, but it still is very easy to consume without even thinking about it. So, yeah, if anyone has any questions.
How many samples did you get?
I got 45 samples.
And all just in the farms?
Yeah, this is the map right here, and I'm not too sure why, but the ibuprofen seemed to be centered around the west side of Jupiter Farms. And I only found one, it's this right here. This had 18, it was around 18 for nitrate level, which is really high, but it tested negative for ibuprofen, which was kind of a discrepancy, is weird. But yeah, nitrates can also come from fertilizers.
I'm not looking at the map, but could that be some of the old farmland? I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Well, you know, Italian farms on the west side of east side of Jupiter Farms Road were tomato fields for a long, long time. Also, a lot of people brought in contaminated fill from Sonoma Isles just recently when, you know, they were illegally selling it off.
How long ago was it farmland, actually? How long ago?
30 years, 60s?
When did it stop? 30 years ago?
Yeah.
That's not nitrates anymore.
No?
That's probably animals.
Yeah,
Well, I
like
say
fertilizers
large.
from farm.
Okay.
Did you see horse properties tend to have more evidence
I did send out sample or surveys with my samples. Not everyone filled them out, but I did ask for livestock fertilizer use, and with the ones that tested positive for ibuprofen, because that's more what I was focused on was human feces. They didn't have much fertilizer use or livestock or anything.
You know the depths of the well she sampled from?
Yeah, that was a question on my survey. A lot of people didn't know the depths of their well. They just said it was around 100 or 150 or so.
150?
Yeah.
Pretty sure they were lying.
Yeah, but also it doesn't much matter because of, as she was saying, the flooding and the actual reality of the situation. If you want to explain the septic to water table, since you did learn it, please explain it.
Are you getting graded tonight?
No.
Oh, it's already an A. That's good, at least we know that.
She already presented
If she
it.
fails, it really sucks.
Yeah, so pretty much, I have a little graphic down here, you guys probably can't see that either, but, essentially I mentioned up here that, we have an open aquifer depth of around 3 feet, and an average depth from septic drain field base to water table is around 2 feet. So in events of flooding, when the water table rises, it just moves the contaminants around, because the water table's rising. And especially in the farms, I know at least my property, it gets flooded all the time, even with just a little bit of rain, we're completely saturated and underwater. But yeah, and also just to note the one with really high nitrates, he said that and again, these were surveys filled out by the people, so I can't be 100% sure that it's accurate or truthful, like with the well depth. I have no idea
People
what
lie
the
about their
well
wells
depth
all
is.
the time.
Yeah, he said that his septic tank was 25 feet away from his well.
Whoa.
So,
That's
yeah,
not-
I
You
know.
don't know if it's downstream or upstream of the groundwater. I mean, that was really interesting too, because it's out in the west, the water heads east-southeast underground. And so I'm wondering what the divide is. Is there a river, is there a canal, or some other ditch, or some other way for that water to resurface itself? Because it's not very deep, as you educated me. The difference between the bottom of the septic and the top of the water table on a good day is still anywhere from 1 foot to 2 feet, which is regulation minimum.
And I also think that that's way too close. I don't
It's
think
sandy
that's.
soil too.
But,
No,
I mean,
it
for
is,
you
but
getting a
your water
permit.
you all have ponds, or everyone that has a pond just dug a hole. I mean, the water table is right there.
Right.
So,
I think he meant the difference between
No,
our septic and our well are on opposite sides.
right, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that 25 feet, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But if it's downstream, it matters.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and it appears that there's not an issue in the east, but there's an issue in the west. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of surface water
The
divide
west
that
is
runs.
much higher, so it's kind of counterintuitive to that, because we flow completely from the west to the east in the whole farms.
No,
Yeah.
not completely.
Groundwater flows, underground, water underground flows towards the ocean in a southeasterly, from a northwest to a southeasterly direction.
Right.
This
We're,
way?
we're in 2 aquifers here.
Very, very slowly, because the slope is so small and there's no bedrock to support it. It's all, well, there's coquina and calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate, and I misspoke. But I'm saying there's no like granite bedrock there, and even the bedrock that we have is incredibly porous and dissolves easily with acidic waters. So it's a situation where it's sandy soil, the septic's very close, you flood quite a bit. So we wanted to know if this was affecting your wells, and it is. I'm curious that the west and not the east is affected. It would be really interesting to me to get more samples, do some more tests, see exactly what's going on there.
And if I recall correctly, when you first contacted, we were flooded out.
Yeah.
And then by
Right.
the time we gave the samples out, we were I know we had our ponds, and it was gone by the time that meeting came.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean,
this was sort of after that, or?
I took samples over a course of about 3 months. I started during summer. So the samples I got from the October meeting, there is a chance that it was a little bit after.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I did get about half or more of my samples during when we were completely flooded in the summer.
Was there a difference between the two?
Not much. Nitrates tend to stay in the water.
So the being flooded isn't like, oh my God, it's worse because we have more water, I guess?
Or did it
is what
dilute
I'm
out an
asking.
event that happened earlier? Do you actually have dates on your samples? That's a great question.
Because July, we took a lot, July, August, we took the
Well-
record-breaking water, but by the time we did the sampling in October, that water was gone. So
Do you know the
during
levels for the
summer-
season?
No.
Okay.
Can you hold
I haven't
that
even looked
A
at the
until you
surveys
get that
again.
information?
I do because we've been having to turn in hydrographs to the Water Management District for my company, and we hit our yearly rainfall by the end of June, easily,
Right.
easily. And everything, all of
No,
our
the
hydro.
difference
We're
between
just
the
trying to-
sampling,
We're
not.
just trying to
Right.
figure out if the numbers came out higher during the wet season or during
Right.
the dry
Because
season.
that was the idea, right, to see
Even
how
though it's
flooding
wet.
occurs.
Yeah, to see
Is it consistent, or is there a more of a earlier versus later in the season?
I don't know, because we've had some funny stuff coming up in our monitoring wells too, just because the hydrology was so wacky
What
this wet
month?
season. Oh, the whole wet season,
Okay.
because of, during the
So it
rebound.
could be consistent, we have to look at it, thank you very much.
So my question now is, from a conclusion standpoint, what should we do?
Filter it.
So, I mean, is there a specific type of filter on a specific?
Oh, that's above my pay grade, sweetheart.
She's called a sweetheart, that was adorable.
I have the filter information in the report that I never gave you to post online.
Okay, so you'll give me the report, but you never did.
It's your fault. Nitrates at a high level can be dangerous to children, but it's fairly innocuous compared to pesticides and all the other things. But what it's really good, and she had already said, check your filter, check your septic, make sure your filters are working because other people's septic, yada yada, very good. Train of thought. Nitrates are fairly innocuous, but they are a really good indicator, especially when you have ibuprofen in it, that things are traveling through your well that don't belong there, including pesticides. So I can't say get this filter for a nitrates, and then you may have a bigger issue.
Right.
The bottom line is make sure you have the best filter system that you can afford, make sure that it's maintained appropriately, make sure you're not pouring bleach down the well, you're actually using whatever tablets you need to use, and you're using them appropriately, just use it properly. And then you don't need to purchase bottled water, because your water is good. And it's cheaper out of your faucet than it is buying bottled water.
Right.
It's better for the environment if you purchase it, if you don't purchase it and use it out of your faucet.
Why ibuprofen rather than sucralose?
It's cheaper and easier.
Okay.
That's it.
Kind of like
Yeah, we
it.
don't use ibuprofen, but my husband uses enough sucralose for 30 people.
Well, and sucralose is
So-
expensive, but
It's Mike, it's showing up all over the
Well, I
farm.
use ibuprofen.
yes, but someone else might.
Right, but like if you tested my yard and found ibuprofen, that's obviously coming from someone else, because we don't.
You
have
don't use it either?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder how that factors in also.
It's just, it doesn't degrade.
And there's that new Coke with ibuprofen coming out, so that's gonna really screw us up.
And then are the tests from Home Depot enough for us to test our water, or do
No.
we need to be buying better tests
The
regularly?
tests from Home Depot are for you to purchase it, not for you
Right.
It's a selling technique.
Yeah.
That's a company that
So where
has
do
you
given
get a
Home
water
Depot
softener,
money to
but not a
say,
filter.
throw us your business. And if you do it, they're gonna try and sell you a whole new water system, because there's an alarming rate of blah, 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 and you're, you know,
So if they're telling me I'm okay, I'm probably okay.
No,
No?
absolutely not.
I
They're
know-
not testing for that stuff.
I know that there is, in town, there's Jupiter Environmental,
Great lab.
which is a great lab.
Yes.
I don't know how much it is, but for your peace of mind, it's probably cheap. You know, here's the thing that bugs me. We have people that move in, that become alarmist about their water when, A, they don't know how deep their well is. It might have been drilled back in 1970 something, and for $1,500, get a new well, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper than when the Loxahatchee River District decides to come in and bill us all $30,000 for bringing city water in. That's what, $40,000.
You don't need to do that.
And you don't need to do
Your
that.
filters get your.
Right, so, you know, all you need to do is reinvest in, you know, your well and do your due diligence.
If you think about the amount of money you spend on bottled water, and it's very expensive, especially compared to what comes out of town. And I know, actually what's happened in the garden, we talk about this all day and all night. I'm gonna be very brief as I can possibly be. Public systems are no longer adequate, which is why people buy bottled water. You are literally paying for the tertiary system that is required, that they won't put into tax dollars to do. So public water is not great, as we all know, in Pennsylvania, Virginia, Washington, New York. It's not great. Your filtered water has the potential to be perfection if you use your filter appropriately, better than public water if you use your filtration system appropriately. You may not need a new fancy system, you might just need to use yours appropriately.
What, about reverse osmosis, are you talking about equipment?
Oh, well, Brit is not enough, but, and reverse osmosis is the best, so, you know, you can just give me two ends of a bell curve there. But, you know, they've got reverse osmosis systems that are like 3 and 4 filters, it's whatever you can afford to do.
You're talking about drinking water, not versus the whole house.
Well, you can do a point of view system at the sink, but, then you're still showering in those contaminants. I thought everyone had whole house systems.
We do.
Okay, well then just make sure.
You just, but you don't need a.
No, but you have filtrations, it's about microns too. If you have a
Right.
system that's not that, you just might have to buy more filters more
For
often.
example, we change our filter once a month, every 2 months, the outdoor filter, and
Is that cheaper than buying bottled water?
sediment filter.
Yeah, they're like, that's $8 or $9.
Right, and your sediment filter is rated for certain microns.
Right.
And microns are based, you know, certain contaminants are certain microns. And you may need, you may need to upgrade your inline sediment filter. You may need to rebed your carbon. You may need,
To buy a smaller micron.
to buy a smaller micron. It's really, and I know that when I moved into my house 10 years ago, I have a father-in-law that is head of basically the Department of Microbiology at the University of Georgia. And while he was driving through, and he visited, and we had questions about my water, he said, let me take a couple of samples. And this was after I had had my water system not totally redone, but brought up to speed. And the results that he gave me, he said, yours is better than any bottled water that you are ever going to find, and better than almost any municipal water. You're doing everything perfectly. And so every 4 years, you know, every 2 years or 3 years, when you know you need your carbon rebed, you have it rebed, and that's $200 and something. You know, and when you put that $200 over the cost of, you know, of every month over those 2 or 3 years, it's nothing.
On top of that, the bottled water they're finding has plastic in it.
Right.
Small plastic is just, you're ingesting and it's cancer causing and all kinds of stuff. So it's better just to use your filter.
Yeah, and just bring your current system up to snuff. And we've got great water guys out here that are telephone call away, and
Right.
they're going to come in, they'll diagnose you. If you want to take your sample over to Jupiter Environmental, you'll get a breakdown of, you know, throw more money at it, they'll test it for everything. But you know, it's again $100, $200 to get an entire breakdown of what your contaminants might or might not be, and then you say to the water guy, this is what I'm fighting. You know, for most of us, it's sulfur, nitrates, and iron.
And I would say pesticides.
And pesticides.
Your ibuprofen, can you clarify that a little bit? What are you talking about? Are you talking about aspirin?
No, ibuprofen,
Yeah.
chemical.
Advil.
Advil.
Pain reliever. It's a human marker. Humans are the only ones who use it.
It doesn't break it
It
down.
doesn't break it down.
So it's flushed down your toilet, basically, out
It's,
here.
it's peed out, yeah.
It's defecated and urinated out.
Yeah.
So it's found in your septic tanks, and if it's found in your water, there's only one source, and it's human sources.
And then,
They use sucralose, and there's also when we started using flunixin in other areas, and flunixin is an Advil for horses and cattle. So if you would then check for flunixin, you would see if your nitrate was human or large animal.
So you're finding significant amounts?
Nothing too worrying. I found more significant amount of nitrates, but the fact that there is ibuprofen does indicate that there is a potential of human feces, which
Well, what's
is
the
a problem.
acceptable amount? I'm not hearing what the.
Of human feces?
no, zero.
None.
Zero.
Zero.
Should all be
Unless it's your
zero.
own.
The blue right here
Yeah.
should, there should be no
Nitrate's 10.
blue.
Oh, okay.
But
Nitrate's 10.
Yeah, nitrates is around 10 milligrams per liter.
After 10, what happens is the red blood cells where oxygen would normally attach gets covered with the nitrogen, and the child will have something called blue baby syndrome. They will literally suffocate on a cellular level.
Wow.
So adults don't necessarily feel it as easily or as quickly, but it can kill babies.
So if you make formula with that water,
Right.
that's what you're doing.
So you said the west side was more on the ibuprofen side, right?
From the samples that I took,
So it's essentially
they
published.
tend to be focused on the west side of the farms and not the
Well,
east.
the west side of the farms is
Where's
kind
the-
of
yeah, what's your
big.
west side?
So
let me
was there a specific area that had a higher concentration, like maybe 2 streets, couple blocks?
Okay.
Just so you know, your.
My house,
Your wife's.
just bought, I'm
It's 3
new.
years old.
Okay.
It's a new question.
By the way, she's doing terrific, because we're giving it a go.
And we are videotaping this, so the background noise, if we keep it to a minimum, that helps us so that we can hear.
Okay, so it is west of Jupiter Farms Park, and the ones that I have marked here are near 169th Court North, and 130th Avenue North.
It's totally.
Around that area.
Right.
So near, actually pretty close to Jupiter Farms Elementary. I'm sure all you guys know that one is.
They get tested regularly. Anytime there's a well that has more than 20 people, gets tested regularly by law.
Monthly, I believe.
I'm not sure of the.
I'm pretty sure, and South Indian River Water Control District and the Loxahatchee River District all do this testing at certain areas in the farms. The school, the restaurant.
Right, they all have to be.
They're monthly, it's a monthly operating report.
Right.
Is there a PDF of this somewhere that we can?
Yeah, can we get this?
I'm gonna have all of that stuff on the website. I will send that to you, where that website is. She has to attempt to publish it first. It can't be anywhere before she attempts to publish it
okay,
first.
gotcha.
She has 6 months to get that together. And then we'll figure it out from there.
Any other questions for Ms. Conklin?
Right next to you.
Go ahead.
So basically, if the ibuprofen is in the marker showing up, there's a fail somewhere in your system, or it's possible that where your well is compared to your neighbor's septic, that it could be your neighbor's septic that's
Yes.
failing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and are there septic companies that come out and can guarantee you that your septic is fine, and then you could go to your neighbor and say, hey, you got a problem, or?
You just have, in a flood situation,
It doesn't matter.
It's anybody's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's stuff is everywhere.
you could be down the stream. I say
Yeah.
down, but you could be down the stream of it. There's.
So as a
So again,
realtor, you're gonna wanna sell the north
Right?
houses at a premium.
You can get little filters as your guests.
There you go.
Yeah. I'd also like to add, keep in mind if this is concerning, 45 samples, we have 4,500 homes.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know how, I took bottles home, I didn't have time to do it.
Nice,
While I'm doing this, I didn't bring them back.
but you don't use
We
that.
don't know how clean the bottles were with the samples.
They were
No, there's-
laboratory grade.
Yeah, they're lab sterile.
Right, but when I took them home, they sat in the back of the car with my dog.
Do you have ibuprofen in the back of your car?
Unless your dog put his rear end on, there would be no
I
need
don't know my
to.
dog.
I hope the lid was on it.
Well, I know when we had our water tested when we moved in,
I'm
they
perfectly
checked the
Yeah.
faucets. They showed-
That's
they
for
cleaned
fecal
faucets.
coliform. The faucet is for fecal coliform.
Okay,
only.
so not nitrates.
Correct.
Okay,
So
so
nitrates
in assuming
and ibuprofen, you can't contaminate them, yeah.
Theirs was, they were
No,
fine.
yeah.
Delicious.
You can't
Yeah,
cross-contaminate.
that's just nitrates, that's not.
Okay, let's just check it.
That's good.
So, here's another question. After a flood event, is there something that we as homeowners should do to get our system, get our system back to good balance?
Do you want to handle this?
If you have a good answer, go ahead, but yes, that's always.
Fight it out, fight it out.
It was also in my presentation, which
Which you didn't
again,
do.
I haven't given you to post online for the edification of all of our happy residents. Yeah, there's a whole, short series of steps that can help mitigate that, which is basically you decontaminate your wellhead. So if your wellhead has either ever been underwater or is even kind of close to rising water in your yard, then yeah, there's a decontamination process.
Which means that
for
you should all know
your
where your
wellhead.
wellhead is. It only
Yes,
took me-
and, right, and there are a lot of people who do not know where their wellheads are. They're not even what appear to be above ground because their yard maybe's been flooded so many times that
Or
now
they
they've
brought
got
in fill.
sediment, or they filled over it without knowing or looking. So, yeah, it's an interesting concern, but yeah, there are steps to, deal with that anytime it floods.
And to answer your question, you're absolutely correct, 445 versus 4,500 is a huge difference. When we do it year after year after year, we end up getting a larger database. You own that database, by the way, this is all information, it's yours, you can do whatever you want with it, I don't own it, you do it. So we can give you the maps, and if we do it every year, it just gets bigger and bigger. And what we have found is after 5 years of doing research like this, in this manner, the outliers fall out, and you can get a really nice view of what's actually happening in the water.
Is there a way to compare that against Sir Wickett's testing and Waxahachie River District's testing? 'Cause they do all over the farms.
Yeah, but I don't think.
They don't do
ibuprofen.
ibuprofen. They do
You're not looking
sucralose.
for human fecal markers. No, they do sucralose?
No.
They do sucralose, I
Oh,
think.
it's different.
LRD does sucralose, Sir Wicket does not.
See, yeah, if you.
They do speed mode.
Steady.
My understanding is if you feel like, if you come across something and you're uncomfortable with it, that you go to a state certified lab, because then if you want a legal situation where you have to do something legal, you need a state certified lab. And I think ours, where's ours, Jacksonville?
What,
Ours
the
is in
certification?
Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Jacksonville. And then whatever comes back from Jacksonville is considered legally valid. Any other lab can still be fought against.
I was just curious to see.
Right, and I'm just adding to that information.
How the two, but I know.
I think the biggest takeaway is everybody needs to do their due diligence.
Right.
You know, not just for the neighborhood, but for yourself, you know, self-responsibility.
Is it a way of getting information that?
Not yet. It's gotta be published first.
Okay, I'm just.
She hasn't published it.
I can send it to some, I can send it to you if.
In code.
If you don't publish it, I can send you the map.
But, no, don't do
No,
that. I don't want that responsibility.
If you have individual results, do you know your bottle number?
I have their, if,
Do you have an Excel with their name and their bottle number?
I have the survey still, and.
A card?
A card?
Yeah.
No, she does.
What's your LinkedIn?
Give them your school email, if they're interested in their individual results, they give you their name, and then you can look in your Excel, find out what their results were,
Yeah.
and then you can email them the results.
Yeah, as long as you put your contact information or your phone number or whatever, I can.
Email.
No,
Email.
if
You don't wanna
they
talk.
put their contact information on the survey.
Do Instagram. Or, I don't even know what D means for you.
Direct message.
No, I didn't, actually, I did put names, it was, name, address, phone number. Yeah, don't worry, this is all by number.
I see my dot, it's all good.
Yeah, if you know where your dot is, you can just go look at it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you know your address.
Yeah, it's not very-
You
You know
can see
your
the map
address.
and know where east is versus west.
Well, we try to bring it out, it's supposed to be drawn out enough so that you can't find out if it's your neighbor's wells, do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, but if
just
there's 45,
and
you know, yeah.
You don't want any well shaming though.
Well, she. I saw what your well looks like at the meeting.
Neighbor
You
shame.
suck.
One more question. The fact that we have a wild and scenic river over here, and all of our water happens to go underneath the bridge and north, what do those folks have to say about studies like this? Are they doing it?
Well, that's what the Waxahachie River District is primarily looked at, and that's what we're looked at. You know, this is, it's within our best interest to keep our water quality good, because if it doesn't go good, because they're monitoring all of this that goes into the wild and scenic Waxahachie, that, I have a hand up, wow, go ahead.
No, please finish your sentence.
Oh, okay. They're you're a troublemaker. They're looking very closely at that. Because look, the bottom line is the Waxahachie River District is a public utility. They would love to have great reason to come in and say, you're all paying $40,000 because we want to hook you all up to city water. And once that happens at one point in the farms, it will happen to the rest of the farms, because there's a state law that says if you are within 1 mile of a serviceable utility, you have 365 days to connect. So once there's one, it's going to trickle down. And they're a utility, they're a corporation, they want to make money. So it's within our best interest, but right now they have.
Let's not go crazy on the watershed.
What's that?
Let's not go crazy on the watershed.
Right, exactly. You know, stop using ibuprofen and sucralose. You know, if you just cut those things out of your diet, we're good.
The reality of the situation is, it's not a problem that's large enough to be measured in the river, is that what I just heard?
Yeah.
They check, right, okay. It's diluted out, whatever it is, I mean, it's heard. And that's important to know, because I have a student that did over 100 samples in 4 different areas across the entire Palm Beach County, including Jupiter, from the inlet to the intercoastal to the beaches. And his levels of nitrates were off the charts. And his ibuprofen came up with, over those 100 and some samples, more than 50%.
And that's on.
Yes.
And that's on
city
that
utilities.
side. Right, well, they're also trying to, I read, only because I read all of the documents, they're trying to turn that over there, a 20-year plan or something over there.
Well, they've still got a lot of septic.
We go to the meeting every month.
Yeah.
And
We
so
go-
the little tots, and we are a giant, and then there's.
You're yellow or
That's
something.
left on sewer.
There are a couple little enclaves that are left on septic, but primarily our outfall is better quality than a lot of the areas that
Right.
are already sewered.
And that's what I'm getting at, when you start getting down in that area, it's not dogs, I'm telling you right now, it's not dogs.
That guy
It's not
over
dogs.
there.
It's not dogs. No, I'm talking about in the intercoastal and whatnot, it's not the dogs.
It's our hangovers.
Yeah. Let's find some person over there to blame it on. Any other questions for Mabry?
This is fab, guys, thanks, and thank you very much for your participation.
This is great, and you know,
Fantastic.
you said that there's a possibility of this going on. We would love that too. We would absolutely love that. We would welcome you back year after year to put another student through this miserable. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Bring the ladies up. No, go ahead.
We always have a neutral party draw, so I'm gonna have.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, we have Margot Youngman, who didn't want to come up? Okay.
She's coming up. She's actually. Should make it.
And Victoria Youngman from RE/MAX, outstanding agents with outstanding results, who sponsored our meeting today.
15 years.
Hey, pipe down for just another minute.
We've been out here since 2002. We're neighbors, and we're mother and daughter.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. It's great. We love Jupiter Farms. We love helping people out here. So if you have any questions, you don't have to buy if you don't feel like it. But if you know anybody, and if you have any questions about prices, anything like that, we'd be happy to help you. And if we don't know, we'll take you to the right people.
I have a question.
Yes.
As real